The user is
Good afternoon. Hi. So by now you have all seen the invitation that came from the subcommittee of the School Modernization Committee. As you know, there's a School Modernization Committee that has been formed between the Board of Education and the Town Council, and that has resulted in a number of subcommittees to the School Modernization Committee. And I'm pleased to have joining me today the subcommittee on teacher input. So without further ado, I will let them introduce themselves and explain to you what our input sessions are all about, which is really to gather some information from the people who work in our buildings on how we might improve them. Over by Amy is a list of the topics that we're soliciting input on. And our friend Mike Salamini is here today too, because all of our meetings of the subcommittees are all being videotaped. So we are encouraging you to share any of your input on these topics, and I'll turn it over to Rich Gussenberg, who is our committee chair, and then to Anne-Marie Kemp, who is the overall chair of the School Modernization Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure people can squeeze in if they want. We looked at the spaces and just kind of moved over to this spot. As Marlene mentioned, the Town Council, Board of Education set up a joint committee. You all know that there's been a lot of discussion over the last few years about what to do with our schools. And there was a major proposal about 4 years ago to build a new 6 through 8 middle school, and that did not get through the Town Council and wasn't sent to referendum. The Town Council and the Board of Ed got together and said we need to begin to take a look at this whole process, and as part of that set up the School Modernization Committee. There's 13 members. There are members of the Board of Ed, members of the Town Council, members of the community, which all three of us are. We've been asked to go around to all of the schools and to really just ask for your open and honest input as we're looking. We want to know your experience with the facility. Don't worry about the camera. I know that there was some discussion about whether we should or should not have it, but the Town Council really felt it was important to have complete, open visibility on everything that we do. It's all put online so that community people can take a look. And in fact, I went online this morning and there was somebody who couldn't sleep last night, so she watched the Monday meeting of the School Modernization Committee, which I assure you will put you to sleep quickly. Anyway, I'm Rich Gussenberg. I was an elementary principal for 40-something years, so I know a little bit about schools and facilities. And if you want to introduce yourselves.
Yep. Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Anne-Marie Kemp. I'm a Cheshire resident, mom here. Some familiar faces, other locations, and I am the chair of the School Modernization Committee, so we look forward to hearing your input.
My name is Jennifer Bates. I'm on the subcommittee as well. I have 2 kids here in Cheshire, and we went through the Highland District, so I'm not really familiar with DOOLITTLE, and I'm looking forward to getting to know what's going on here.
Yeah. So as part of the School Modernization Committee meetings, they are doing one meeting at each school. I don't recall offhand when the DOOLITTLE meeting is coming up, but it will be a night meeting. All of the committee members will take a tour of the building. Amy will take us around, point out some of the pros and cons of the facility, and then they'll have a meeting here so that they get to see each of the schools in the process. But that leaves out a lot of teachers and a lot of staff members who maybe wouldn't be able to come to an evening meeting, give any kind of input. So that's why we were asked to come in and sit down with each of the staffs of each of the schools. So we're doing this at every building. And to just get your open and honest input. Nobody wants you to sugarcoat it, and nobody wants you to do the opposite and only come up with the negatives. We want to hear what your experience is. So on the yellow sheet there, we just put down some of the kinds of things that you may look at as you're talking, you know, the overall facility, the things like the lighting, the air quality, the handicap accessibility, security in the building, the classrooms, the configuration and size of them, the heating and cooling, storage, technology, the furniture that you have, the core facilities, the library media center, the art room, the music room, the office spaces, the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and the serving areas. Special ed facilities, I know that that's something that most of our older buildings weren't designed with a lot of the special ed programs that have developed, and how well are we handling that, including some of the assorted special ed facilities, like do we have space for physical therapy and things like that. The parking and grounds, the drop-off and pickup areas, the buses. In some schools, I know that's a real problem because they have very limited space. You happen to be in a bigger footprint facility, so it's nicer. And then we'd like, if you'd like to, give us your opinion a little bit, there has been discussion about, for instance, building a 6 through 8 middle school instead of a 7-8 middle school. What are your feelings about the 6th grade being here, the 6th grade being up in middle school, a 5-6 intermediate school versus a 7-8 junior high type middle school? Any of those kinds of things we'd love to hear your input on. So this is a very unstructured meeting, as long as you want to go. We're going to sit here and just kind of take some notes, and as anyone wants to pop up and say something, feel free, and get yourself on camera. So, I will turn it over to you.
Someone's got to start.
Now, you learn when in education, you always got to give them wait time, because if you jump in right away, they won't say anything. But if you count, eventually somebody will jump in. Now they're proving wrong.
Rich, do you want them to give your names as well, or just make
Yeah,
their
if you,
statements?
when you do speak, if you would just give your name, and if you would tell us your assignment, are you a first grade teacher, library media specialist, principal, whatever. And you can feel free, Amy, if you want to get the ball rolling.
Sure. I mean, I've only been here, as everybody knows, not even a full year yet, but, this particular building I think is a beautiful building. We're in one of the best spaces that we have right now. As classrooms get bigger, the actual classrooms aren't huge. So we would not really be able to fit, a lot of kids in there. I think the space we have is adequate for the grade level that we have currently. We have enough space for most everything. We don't have enough closet and storage space for things, so that really gets, and I'll let people kind of elaborate on that. So, when I came in, that's where, closets and things were overcrowded, and, what things are needed, where can we store things, sometimes becomes, an area of concern. But the student spaces are, from my perspective, pretty adequate for what our needs are for a grade 1 through 6 building. Coming from many different schools that I've worked in, I think Doolittle is a pretty beautiful place. We have a beautiful space, nature. I wouldn't want to lose any of that, because I think that brings the character to the school. And coming in, and like I said, there's all positive things I have to say about the building, but things that might not be working so well, or maybe it was better in another way, I wouldn't be the best spokesperson for that. So if there are any areas that you think kind of would work very well, or if there's anything that those of you that have been here for a very long time, I think the committee would be good to hear from you of how things have can become better, or what things work very, very well so far.
I'll start. My name is Kristen Gallagher, 2nd grade, and I've been here for about 25 years, enough to know that the roof has always been an issue. The pitch of the roof is not maybe steep enough, and we've had concerns with ice freezes and therefore flooding in my room, but maybe others, I'm sure others. And therefore our fascia and soffit is so filled with, I would imagine, we have a problem with our fascia and soffit because it's not exiting it quick enough, and then we have a real problem with mildew and mold. And that's one of many, but I
Is this
will stop
an
there.
older
maybe.
part of the building, or is this a newer part?
The older part of the
older
building
part.
that I'm referring to.
Well, even on the ramp too, it leaks.
Okay.
And then there's always, it was carpet before, and it leaks over here in the library too.
Yeah.
So,
I can kind of jump off that. So my name's Sarah. I teach 6th grade. and I've only been here 8 years, but that's a newer part of the building, right? Like where I am.
Yes.
And it's on a slab, so the moisture gets really bad. When it gets really hot and humid in here, the floor gets like a sheen over it, and it gets very slippery. I mean, they're great about setting up fans, and like I have a dehumidifier in my room to kind of try to manage that. And then the heating
You
is
have
always.
vinyl tile in your room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the heating is always an issue up in our classrooms, it gets very cold. And then, just recently over the summer, we had really, really heavy rain. I came in here one day to work and my class like smelled terribly of like mildew. So I can only imagine what's lurking behind the scenes up there.
So Christine Robideau, I teach second grade. I'd be happy to comment on what I've experienced with requesting storage, mobile storage, as you look to outfit a new facility. Things on wheels will provide mobility and less damage by cleaning staff for seasonal cleaning where they're moving things in and out. I know we've invested and teachers have their own money and the school has and the district has in bookcases that just don't hold up because they get racked
So
and they're
you're talking
moved and
about
damaged.
equipment within the classroom?
Equipment with storage for books and storage cabinets that are on wheels where they can be locked for safety around children, but wheeled right out into the hallway and wheeled right back in. Makes sense if we're outfitting a new school to get teacher input on those types of things rather
Are there
than just order.
storage closets in any of the classrooms, or are they
The
just
configurations
cabinets?
are a little bit different in each room, whether it's built in, whether it's like a single closet and then a shelf above in a closet with hooks for children, or some of the other classrooms. Nicole, if you want to jump in.
Nicole, I teach third grade now, but I've been in a few different classrooms, and I think depending on which room you're in, depends on what kind of storage you have.
Right.
So some rooms have cubbies that have cabinets above for storage, and some rooms you have to have the big metal cabinet storage because there's no built-in storage in the classrooms. So I think it varies greatly throughout the whole building.
And coat racks and things are in the classroom?
Not all.
Are there
Some are,
lockers in parts of the building?
lockers are in for 2 grades. They have lockers in one hallway.
For what grades?
4th and 5th have
Okay.
lockers.
But our old, like the cabinets that I have in my room are probably 60 years old, and they can't be moved at this point, because when they move them, they buckle, and like none of my bookcases have backs anymore. Like there's no backs left, so you just have to have the kids hope that they don't push them through, because then you lose them.
Have we been purchasing any new furniture or equipment at all?
No, most of our desks are broken too. I mean, oh, my classroom desk is held together with duct tape. It's awesome. The kids' desks are, they don't stay up, and I think they were cheap. The last ones that were bought probably 20 or 30 years ago, and the laminate all comes off. The top peels, and none of them stay open, so the kids have to use rulers to hold them open.
So they open up and you store stuff inside?
Yeah.
It's that type of fun?
Yeah. Yeah, my kids use rulers.
I haven't seen those in a long time.
Yeah.
I would say down like the new end of the building, I'll piggyback on what Sarah said. The gym is beautiful. I mean, the gym's a nice gym.
Are you the PE
No
teacher?
complaints about, yeah.
Okay.
No complaints about, but when there's humidity, because it's built on the slab, that whole hallway down there gets, I mean, literally, you'll see puddles of water on it. And they, like you said, they put fans out there and they put carpet down there, but kids wipe out going out to recess. And it's usually a day behind everything, if it's really humid the day before, the next day is really bad. Gym floor gets really wet.
So it could have to do with airflow in the
It
building?
could very well be that, but it does get the floor itself, and the gym itself is really nice, but the floor gets really wet, and just when it's really hot out.
Have you ever had the floor buckle at all in there from the humidity?
We've had paint, like, we've had it peels up, the polyurethane on the
Oh,
gym
okay,
floor
yeah.
peels up. But there's now new, I think this year they put new tiling around, right, down in that hallway?
Not
The
in
hall-
Not in your hall, in the hallway we are, they just put brand new tiling.
Yeah.
Because
Because it was
others-
popping up, but this
There's
year
still
we
that
got new.
buckling.
But it still builds the condensation on top of it.
Okay, that's good to know.
Jennifer Parmalee, grade 1. So one issue that I found, I've been in a couple of rooms as well, has been, I don't know if they're coming in through the heating vents or where else. So mice have always been an issue. However, this year I had a new visitor. Back in the fall, I had a snake in my room, which I have no idea how it got there, but there was a snake, and then it was my understanding that later on in the day, I don't know if it was the same one or its friend came in to visit. So, not in my room, in another portion of the building.
Fit in with the science program at all?
No. Well, it was the day after Halloween, so my first thought was, did someone really decide to bring in a fake snake? And then it moved, so it was real. But then another thing not related to that, just in regards to the feedback on grade level organization, as a primary teacher, it would be very beneficial to have our kindergarten in our building with us.
Yeah, and you're the only building right now, I
Right.
guess, it doesn't have the kindergarten because there hasn't been enough space. And I know that's something that they really, when they reconfigure, they really would like to have the kindergarten back here.
What would be the benefits to you to having kindergarten here?
To be able to have that communication, between grade levels, all the time, first grade will be able to go to second grade and, communicate about students, curriculum, things like that. But it's very challenging when they're in a whole nother part of the town to do that.
Do you get together with them at all? Do you talk to the kindergarten teachers?
We've had some interaction, but it's, usually on days when it has to be pre-planned due to professional development and things like that. So it's not like we could just say, hey, let's call for a meeting tomorrow to talk about certain things. It's just not the distance, basically.
Yeah.
Can I just go off what Jen said? Because I was at Darcy before I was here, and the whole
You teach what?
and now I'm second grade
Second grade?
at DOOLITTLE, yeah.
And your name?
Jen Doobie. And the whole first 2 months of first grade, their experience, they're learning where the gym is, where the cafeteria is, like what is this gigantic building compared to Darcy, whereas all the other buildings in Cheshire, their whole kindergarten years, they've already had that. So when they start off in first grade, they can just start and go. And they don't have to learn the building and all the people and all that. So that extra transition delays our first grade teachers, I think, in like starting with curriculum and just getting everything going. And just the whole transition part for a 5-year-old or 6-year-old is a lot. It's an extra transition that the DOOLITTLE kids are having that other kids in the district are not having because they're going to the same building.
Right, especially if they didn't do pre-K
Right.
at Darcy, so now you're transitioning as a 5-year-old to a whole new building, and then
Yeah.
the next year you have to transition to a whole new place again.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, she like read my mind. But I do also, see in the future, like if we did have kindergarten here, I feel like spacing could be a little bit of an issue, or a lot of an issue. We need more classrooms. Right now, like I even worry because I have one room, my name's Mary, by the way, and I'm the RAM here at DOOLITTLE. So I'm in charge of all the LSTs, and they all share a room, but I'm worried that if we have one more classroom come, where are they all gonna go? Where are they
You're in
gonna
charge of the,
the SRBI students,
Oh, okay.
so they come to the classroom to get their extra intervention. So I have 3 teachers there, so what would happen to them if one more, classroom came to this school?
Well, we'd be happy, the 6th graders, I don't think there's a 6th grader here who doesn't believe that the 6th grade belongs in a middle school. We, the 6th grade students in this building are constantly forced to be put in a situation that's elementary when they shouldn't be. They should be in a middle school. So we have to follow rules and regulations and curriculum that not appropriate for 6th graders, but we still have to do it because we're in an elementary
do
school.
you work in teams like a middle school, or do you not have
We do
staff?
here at DOOLITTLE School, but it's not across the board.
Rich,
And it comes
And it varies from
Sorry.
school to school.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
remember to
scheduling.
mention your name?
Oh.
'cause-
My name is Andrew Delucian. I teach in 6th grade here for 22 years.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
I was just saying that we do work as a team in the 6th grade,
If you
which
could
is
give your
great.
name and.
Sarah, I also teach 6th grade.
Okay.
Which is great, but the scheduling, like the middle school scheduling in an elementary school, proves challenging every year, multiple times a year. Every day.
Yes.
I'm Caitlin Demas, I'm the school counselor. Piggybacking off of what Jen Parmalee and Jen Doobie had shared about the kindergarten becoming a part of the school, from a social, emotional, and behavioral standpoint, we're also at a disadvantage that kindergarten isn't a part of our community right now. One thing that the other elementary schools do have at this point that we don't is the opportunity to kind of work with these kids right off the bat and get interventions into place for them really early, whether it's, behavior intervention, or if there are students that need to be brought up for evaluation because they're new to the district, obviously starting school for the first time. I think that that's something that we would be able to better handle in-house here rather than kind of depending on Darcy to send us everything. We have these behavior meetings at the end of the year, but at that point it's a little late in the game for us to be stepping in and doing anything, so it becomes our issue in the fall. And it's kind of a disadvantage to the kids too, because it's like a whole lapse year. So now they're coming in, they're transitioning, and we're trying to do all of these things, behind the scenes too, to support them.
Right. Do you, how is the space that you have for counseling? I mean, I don't know what, I've known counselors who are in little closets and all sorts of things. I don't know
No window.
whether you have an office large enough to have group meetings and things like that. Or?
No, I'll speak for myself, but myself and one of our school psychologists, our offices are very small and we're in charge of running lunch groups and doing mediations and things like that with a lot of students, and unfortunately the space that we're provided doesn't allow us to really do that, so I find myself branching out and using like the conference room a lot of times for bigger groups or larger meetings that I have to host with kids. So it's a little bit difficult, and the office is also like no windows in the back corner of the building, kind of like isolated.
Your office is?
Yeah, so it makes it a little bit difficult. And we're on polar opposite ends of the building, myself and the school psychologist, so working collaboratively is very difficult as well.
Okay.
So, this is Melina,
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Melina, fourth grade. I've been here 3 years, and I've had the advantage of being at other schools in Cheshire, and there's some lovely things here, the outdoor, the nature walk and such. The lockers are amazing. I love my lockers. But I would just continue on what Jen said, the bats.
Bats like not baseball bats.
Have we seen the classroom? I did.
That seemed to have hit a chord.
I forgot about that. It hasn't happened. We're not like.
So are they in the building? Are they in every classroom? Are they?
I thought it was mostly that side of the building, but
It's mostly the gym.
The gym?
in the gym.
Fire spaces. They get up in the rafters. Yes.
I'm Beth Swigert, third grade. I know the classrooms, as far as heating, it can be very iffy, it's very cold or very hot. And then anytime it is warm, I mean, we are sweating. It is so difficult to work when the temperature gets.
Do you hear airflow through the building? I mean, does it feel like there's?
I don't know, I mean, we don't have AC here.
No, I know you don't have AC, but I didn't know whether there was any kind of airflow.
Well, I don't think
Our
so.
windows.
You open the windows.
Yeah, just windows.
Yeah.
Our fans.
But it gets very uncomfortable, and the same thing with the condensation, and everything just starts to curl that you have on the walls. I mean,
There's
it's.
newer buildings, and I see you've got the vents up here, newer buildings
Oh,
will
this is
have
it.
airflow.
This is
and
air
upstairs. Right.
Oh, this is
But
actually,
older
yeah.
buildings, older parts of the building
Yeah.
don't, as you said, when they built them, they built it so if, you want some airflow, you open the window.
I'm Christine Diorio. I just recently, I teach fifth grade, bouncing off what Beth said about the heaters. The heating system itself is ancient, and I can only imagine, we have to open it up and use a yardstick to turn it on. We have to stick a yardstick with a little
In your
notch in it.
classroom?
Yes, to turn the blower on and to turn it off. And if you leave it on too long, it does blow out cold air during the winter, but unfortunately it doesn't blow out cold air in the summer. But even if you look in there, it's ancient, and I can only imagine the bacteria and debris that's in there. I know I have seasonal allergies, and you cough and you choke and you sneeze all day long. It just, there's no way for them to clean it. I'm in a new part of the building now, but in the other part of the building, it was a continual issue with the mice coming in through the closet and through, because I was on the courtyard side, and through the heating vents, The the unit. There was a continual issue every single year. I couldn't keep anything in my closet because it was constantly filled. Even though they would put mouse traps out and they trapped the mice, and it was a constant issue of them getting in. Which it was, well, that's kind of just the way it is. I was,
Well, because
you
it
know,
was poison.
unfortunately, but it's just something that, you know, the heating system itself, and not even just not being warm enough or, you know, in the winter time, but just that what's in there. And if it's filled with rodents, that's not being cleaned out because you can't get in there, it's a built-in housed system that isn't very healthy.
Yeah.
And just piggybacking off of what Christine said, so with Jen Parmalee again, sorry. In the spring and then the fall, when seasonal allergies start to happen, I know I myself have bad allergies, and my allergist has told me that you should be in air conditioning all the time, but I'm an adult and I get paid to be here, so I suck it up. But, I know for kids at that time of the year, it's extremely challenging to deal with. I don't know the statistics of how many kids go to the nurse due to, hay fever and other symptoms of allergies, but, I think that's a big reason why so many kids probably go home sick that time of year. Because they're uncomfortable, they're itchy, they're scratchy. I know myself, I am, so I can only imagine how they feel.
Yeah, I'm Kristen Gallagher, and I remember a couple years ago, second grade again, but the problem is I was having such problems that we had the maintenance come in and and did a full cleaning in my room, whatever, with the nurse's help. It's about 10 years ago. And I was told that we have an airflow system that is stemming from outside that comes through our huge box, floor system in the old building, and then comes out. And so therefore it's an outside airflow that literally comes through and so if you get down on the ground underneath the heating unit, you can just feel the cold air strip, the air just flowing under there. So now so then what happens is there's an inner filter in each of our heaters, and we could even ask maybe, and I have years ago, to get it changed like more often, so Mike can actually change our filter systems for people who really have allergy issues. But the thought is that now we have the airflow coming in because we had such a, literally, you can see a paper moving, coming in. So some teachers asked, kind of I don't blame them, but to block it off outside. So I know Miss Edwards' room has now a room all the way down in one of the rooms has a panel on the outside, not letting any air come in.
No airflow though.
No airflow.
Yeah.
So yes, we blocked the air to come in because we were cold and drafty and having such a heat issue. But now, obviously, it's so that's a major concern with our 50-year-old boiler system and we don't have any hot water.
Oh, yeah.
So parents are alarmed at that. I mean, how do you have a classroom with running water but no hot water?
You have sinks in all the rooms?
Some.
Some of the rooms?
That's kind of a high, I was in a room for a long time with no sink, and it's really hard. I mean, hand sanitizer is great, but you want to wash your hands sometimes, and you can't leave the classroom.
Who's that?
Does the nurse's office have hot water?
Yes, I would say yes. I don't know for sure.
I would hope so.
There's other places in the building that have hot water. I'm sorry, I just
The newer
was
part of the
saying.
building.
So the bathrooms have hot water.
Just the bathrooms do, yes. And
I don't know if the kids' bathrooms do.
The kids' bathrooms don't have hot water.
Oh, the kids' bathrooms?
I'm Sarah, and I teach third grade. My classroom does have hot water.
I'm sorry, Sarah, what grade?
Third.
Third grade.
My classroom does have hot water, and it's too hot. I can't have the students use the sink because I'm fearful of the temperature of the water. It's scalding hot at the sink.
Do you have your own hot water heater, or is it coming from
That's where it's all
Yes, if we can stay to one person. Rebecca?
Yeah, can we have the side conversations off? Thank you.
I'm a special ed teacher, grade 3 and 4. I've been
And what
here
is your name,
18
please?
years.
Rebecca.
Rebecca Volpe. And it's just thankfully this year we haven't had to share rooms, but in the past, special ed teachers have had to share rooms. And it's difficult when we're doing different grade levels and kids are coming in and going out. And I've actually had to move my room about 7 times since I've been here in those 13 years because of classrooms shifting. It's always me that so it's just that space for special ed because it is important.
Is yours a pull-out program or a push-in program? Or?
It's both. It's a little bit of both.
So it's, it's not a full classroom space, it's a smaller space?
Well, it's a classroom right now.
This year.
Okay.
It's a classroom right now, but I've been in several of the rooms.
Okay.
And so it's difficult when you don't want to unpack too much, because you never know if you're going to have to move to another room.
Yeah.
So,
Do we have any really fragile children in the building? Are there any programs for children who, no, not in the school?
We have a behavior program in the building.
You do,
And
okay.
they have this seclusion room.
Because I know some schools really have children with severe medical issues. Any other classrooms have window air conditioners in them?
I just want to piggyback, my name is Karen Del Dudas, I'm also special ed 4, 5, and 6. And I just want to piggyback on what Rebecca said, because I don't think she can overemphasize it enough, that in the past Rebecca and I have been crammed in a room together we both have very high caseload numbers, and it's just, does not make, when we both are talking out loud and there's, 3 different groups of kids working on 3 different subjects, it's, does not make for a very good setting educationally, especially with our population, the kids are very easily distracted as it is. So it's very important going forward to, with any plans that you are making to make sure that special ed has their own classrooms.
Yes, again.
Hi, Sarah, 3rd grade. And just to kind of go back to the air circulation and having windows open, it doesn't impact all of the classrooms, but any of the classrooms that are on the playground side, opening the windows is very difficult because the playground is right outside the classroom. And having a playground so close to classrooms is challenging even when the windows are closed because you hear the playground noise, the whistles for lighting up, the bells for lining up outside, balls being kicked into your windows while you're teaching, and then just having to keep the windows closed, and sometimes the curtains as well.
That's the blacktop areas right next to your class? Okay.
There's a playscape also right by the windows, or by the classrooms.
I've taught in 3 of the classrooms down that side, and so you either have the lining up where your windows are, and then that you have the noise from the lineup, the noise from the playscape, or the noise from the kickball. So it's kind of throughout that whole way.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I teach 3rd grade here. I would absolutely agree with Sarah. Actually, I was going to mention that, that is a challenge with opening the windows, especially in the summer. But I was also thinking in terms of security. We've asked in the past when we're outside on the play areas, we would love to have an outer set of speakers where we could hear if there's an announcement or if there's an emergency. I mean, we have our walkie-talkies, but I just think for safety, it would be great if we could have some kind of speakers outside.
So people carry walkie-talkies now in case of a lockdown or something?
Yeah, yeah, if we need something when we're outside, if we need help.
Yep.
Or to communicate.
That actually would probably be a fairly easy thing to do. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bouncing off what Kelly said, Christine Diorio, grade 5. Some of the doors in the building they don't lock and unlock easily or well, which can become a safety issue. Some of our doors have a push bar and the arm on the top, and the arm is not attached, and I was told that was for a specific reason in the past. But I can't even have the magnet because it doesn't, like everything else, everybody else has the magnets now. The door doesn't lock or unlock easily. And sometimes if you really turn the key hard, it won't open, but sometimes if you push it hard enough, it just opens on its own. So I just think that might not need to be looked at as something in the future.
So for lockdown purpose,
yes.
You can't count on locking those.
No, and I can't keep the door closed, or I moved my cabinet after we had our Alice training. I moved my big cabinet right near my door to block the door, but it doesn't mean that somebody couldn't get in. And this is one specific classroom, but I've had that experience in my old classroom before as well.
Yeah.
Can I jump on Christine? We're in the same wing, but
Name?
I'm Beth Schultz, and 5th grade as well. I'm lucky enough to be on the courtyard, which is incredible and amazing, and my kids love to look at. So you should hear the positives. We love our courtyard. But I will say the thing with the doors, I think sporadically throughout the building, that I know I have difficulty instead of doors. My difficulty is with windows. I have a window that's incredibly difficult to open, and once it's open, it will not lock. So I have to make that choice of opening it or closing it. So it's not really an option to, it's getting hot, I'm gonna open my window because it never gets closed. But I think that's also an indicator of the age of the building.
Yes.
Our windows are incredibly heavy, difficult to slide. When I've asked about it each year, I just mention it again, and they're expensive to replace, which I totally get. And it's always when we replace the windows, that will be resolved, but it's been.
The town has been doing window replacement, and it's one of these things where, you know, it's a multi-year process where they go in and maybe they'll do an eighth of the high school in one summer, you know, so they just keep putting money into it. But, you know, we have, most of our buildings have single pane windows. I don't know what these are, it's a new addition here, but I'm sure there's a lot of heat going out the windows in our schools.
Yeah, and they're like, because the latches on our windows are, it's like a lever.
It's a spring behind the lever.
Yeah.
So your spring breaks.
Yeah, mine's broken
It's
now for 3 years.
There's a whole.
Yeah. And I don't think it
Climb up on top of the
really,
heater.
I don't think it's ever really locked at this point because it's broken, so you could just slide it
You're in the
open,
back.
you know? So that's a security
Good, yeah.
issue. And I'm on the outside, so.
I'll take any of those. I don't have a window in my office, so it's kind of dull.
Yeah, and our nurse's office doesn't have a window either, which is, you know,
No,
if you were
that's
designing
about
a building-
airflow.
Yeah, you
Right.
want to get the germs
But they're
out.
air conditioners.
Yeah, but she's,
Does
germs.
the nurse isn't here right now?
No.
Does the nurse's office have a separate area for students to lay down in, a separate area for the
Not
nurse to make
separate.
phone calls? It's just
One
one
big
open
room.
space?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one
It's
little.
one big open room, but there are areas for them to lay down, but it is one big
It's
space.
one
Yeah,
big
It's
open
not
room.
closed off, right.
Okay.
You need to supervise, so you wouldn't really want it closed off. You see the kids there.
I have another thought too. Is it parking an issue for people? I almost wondered maybe if our population has gotten, you know, a bit bigger and therefore sometimes, I think we sometimes might have, does other people feel that way, any problems with parking or not really?
I don't know, I always see cars parked in the loop during the day outside.
Yeah.
But
Well,
there's
when I
parking
drove in
spaces,
just
so
now,
I
I
don't
had
know.
no problem. But, you know, we have some schools like Dodd Middle School, there's really a parking issue over there. Luckily.
I just see sometimes cars parked up on the grass, so to me that is a sign.
Yeah.
If you're parking on grass, why? Because
How
there's
about
not
in the
enough
mornings
spots.
when you get parent drop-offs and stuff? Does that work okay? You're lucky you've got a separate area for drop-off that's separate from where the buses come in.
Right.
So that works fine, no
Yeah, I
issues there?
recently at dismissal, we are having a parking issue for, just very recently today, Luther let me know that, you know, there's parents during dismissal that are parking on the grass in areas they shouldn't during parent pickup. But parent pickup is when parents have to park and come in, but they also have the choice of releasing them as a walker, and then those parents use the drop-off. But if they're picking up, signing out, they can't use the drop-off because they have to, you know, that's the quick moving. So those work well in the morning when parents are following directions. But overall, we have a better space than some of the other schools, yeah, for sure.
Any other comments? Well, let me just, you know, give you a little bit of where we're at right now. We're doing meetings at each of the schools. We'll be putting this together into a report that we'll be giving to the whole committee. The committee at this point has been charged with trying to come up with a comprehensive plan to present back to the town council in early September. They would love to have the first referendum, if possible, going out as part of the November election. Now, I don't know whether the committee is going to make all that. The process is, we've got to look at all these schools. We've got some outside consultants that we're bringing in. We're going to be looking at what are some of the best ways of dealing with our facility issues in the district, but also what can we get through the taxpayers. This has to get approved by the town council and the Board of Ed and go out to referendum. So, you know, I'm not certain exactly how much will get done or when, but we're hoping that this process, since we do have Board of Ed members, town council members, community members all working together, sitting together, that it'll be a productive process. I am guessing that whatever is done, that it would be something that would get staged out over years, where, you know, you might decide this is the first thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna build that, and then we'll come in with the next thing. It could include new construction, it could include going in and doing renovations. The state of Connecticut has set up their reimbursements so that they actually give you more reimbursement if you do a renovation, but you have to do what's called renovate as new, meaning you can't just go in and put in an addition or something to get the state renovation. You have to go through and renovate the whole building and make it look new again. But they do offer a higher renovate, or a higher reimbursement if you do a renovation than if you build a new building. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. We don't know. If you have any questions of us, we'll be glad to take them. Yeah.
I have a minute if you don't
Oh,
mind.
Rob, I didn't even see you over there.
Thank you, folks. I'm Rob Orris. I'm Town Council Chairman. And I'm not technically a member. I'm an ex officio member of all of the various committees.
But he's been at every meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? I think it's part of my job. You all hired me to represent you, and I take that job very seriously. So I try to get to every meeting I can, and as they know, I try to get to most. I'm really happy and pleased and appreciate the fact that you all came out. I didn't expect to see so many of you here today, and that tells me that you all care about your school and you care about the kids. And that's why we're all here, because we care about the kids in the community. So what you have to say is critically important to us. Rich talked about the makeup of this new school modernization committee. Everybody is represented on this committee. We have council, we have Board of Ed, we have members of the community, and obviously we're trying to get input from all of the various stakeholders. All of you are critically important to that. I just want to reference, as you all know, we do record all of our meetings, and I appreciate that you don't mind talking in front of a camera. The reason we do it is for, number one, transparency, so all the community can come up onto a website and see what's going on. And number two, not all the committee members are here. So they all want to know what you have to say as well as we're deliberating through this process and making decisions. It's important that they know what you have to say as well. And while we have, you know, Marilyn here taking minutes, it's not the same thing from being able to watch what you all have to say firsthand. So I know it's not always easy to be in front of a camera, but we appreciate it. And I can tell you this, that nobody's looking to get anyone in trouble. We want everybody to be completely honest. I'm sure you would be anyway. But at the end of the day, it's only here so that we can get good information. So I really, really appreciate the fact that you're doing this. This was really enlightening to me. As you know, the council doesn't have oversight on how the Board of Ed spends their money, but what we do determine is how much money you get for the Board of Ed. So we give a total amount, the Board of Ed decides where and how they spend the money. We have no statutory authority on that as a town council. So we pick the top number, and that's all. That's the only input that we really have. But in saying that, I heard a lot today. I heard a lot of ongoing maintenance issues, which are basically everyday issues that you and the kids have to deal with. And so I think some of those issues can be fixed. We have an older building, we know we want a newer building, but I heard a number of things here today that can be fixed. And we should make sure they get fixed to make sure you all are as comfortable as you can be while you're here. Some items can be fixed, but they need to be fixed with a very large capital expenditure. So that's kind of the second bucket of things that I heard. And then the third issue is, if we're building a new school or renovating is new, as Mr. Gussenberg just said, what are the wish list items? How would you best teach our kids? Collaborative space, size of classrooms. You know, those are the things that this committee is really tasked with getting from you all. It's important that we hear about your maintenance problems, because I can tell you, I took notes of a lot of them, and while I have no statutory authority over them, I will be making a phone call and saying, I can't believe we're dealing with this issue, this issue, and this issue, and it should be fixed. So I will do that, and you have my commitment that I will do that. But this committee is really charged with hearing from you as to, if we're gonna come in and renovate as new or build a new building, how best will you teach our children in today's environment, in the new age? Classroom sizes, collaborative space. We all know HVAC issues. We've heard this at every single school. We know it. We should have air conditioning, and climate control is a horrendous issue. We know it. We've got to fix that somehow, some way. So be that as it is, any new situation is going to fix that, we hope, as best we can. But we need to hear from you, collaborative spaces, classroom sizes, locations of spaces, potting of particular specialties. I heard, you know, maybe a school psychologist is on one end and someone else who collaborates with them are on the other end of the building. We would want to know from a potting perspective where you would like to see all of these resources. Special ed needs. The fact that you would much rather have kindergarten here, we're gonna try to do that. Clearly, we would like to get kindergarten into the schools, but obviously that may only happen if we can get the 6th graders out and put them in a 6 through 8. So, there's a lot of issues that we are all dealing with from a kind of a committee perspective. And I'm not sure which way this is gonna go. I can tell you, everybody is interested in fixing this problem. Folks, I can tell you, I put kids through the school system. I love the Cheshire school system. We have some of the best teachers, and our school is as good as any place I know because of the people that are in the buildings. All 3 of my kids went through this school system. My last one just left the high school and is at Avon, but all 3 of them went through the bulk of the system here. We had a great experience. So thank you guys from me and my family for all that you do every day. The kids behind my kids deserve more. And that's why we're all here. So I think if we can all belly up to the table together, we all know we have financial constraints, folks. I mean, this is not a wish list. This is everything we want, because we just can't do that. There's a lot of people on fixed incomes in this community that have been here all their lives. We have a lot of elderly that are here that we want to make sure can live out their lives in the community they love. So when we are collaborating about what's in the best interest of the kids, the school system, and the community, remember, it's not just you in the building. It's decisions being made to the best of our ability for everybody. Senior citizens, those on fixed income, the kids, you all, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So believe me, there is nothing here saying, let them stay in an old building, we don't care, my kids aren't there anymore. That's not the case. We just have tough decisions to make, and it's not easy, trust me. I've been trying for a while to come up with an easy silver bullet for this problem, and it's not an easy one, without taking our mill rate to a really high number. And that's what we wrestle with every day. So your input is critically important. I know I'm being long-winded, but I want you to know from me, as the senior elected official in this community, this is critically important to me, the town council, the Board of Ed, and everybody that's here. How we get to the answer, I don't exactly know yet, but we're trying. And your involvement is, number 1, greatly appreciated, number 2, critically important, and we want to hear more of it. What I would ask you to think about, and I know we're going to set up an email scenario so you can send more comments in as you think about it. Please give us some thought about what you'd like to see in a full renovation or a new construction. Because I didn't hear a ton of that kind of stuff while I was there. I came in just 5 minutes late. We heard a lot of maintenance items, which I'm glad we heard. But how would you like to see a new facility set up? Because that's really what we're going to be dealing with when we get into looking at this school. If we're looking at this school as a full renovation, how we reconfigure it. And classroom sizes. I mean, we may be looking to say, if all of our classroom sizes are pretty good size, then maybe we can work with the bones we've got. If all the classroom sizes are 200 square feet too small, then we got a bigger problem. Now we got to figure out how to get the classrooms bigger. So those are the things that we're all trying to wrestle with. And, I think we're going to get to, hopefully, an answer. We'd love to have it for referendum for November. I'm not sure if it'll be ready or not. We're going to try. We're going to try like hell, I can tell you that. But what I will promise to the community is if it's not ready, it's not going to go. Because we had some issues with it last time. And I don't want to get into politics or anything else. But the reality is some people felt it was ready, some people felt it wasn't ready, and nonetheless it didn't go. That's why we have a collaboration of a lot of people on this current committee in hopes that we can collaborate together and advance something. So that's where we are, folks. I'm sorry to take up a lot of time, but I think it's important for you to hear from me. You all elect me, those that live here in this town, elect me to do your job, and I want you to know it's important to me, and that I'm trying to get to what I can, and we want to hear from you. And even if it's a maintenance issue, you should be picking up the phone and calling the main office or whoever you're supposed to call about if you've got mice or you've got issues. If you're not being responded to in a timely fashion, then you need to make those phone calls.
I do want to make clear, and I think my fellow teachers will agree with this, we don't want to throw our maintenance men under the bus.
I'm not saying
because
that.
they are top notch. Our guys are on it before we even pick up the phone.
Then that's great.
So
and just so you know, I'm not here looking to throw anyone under the
we
bus
just want to
either.
make sure that you are very, and everybody I think agrees with me,
Absolutely,
they are
yes.
amazing.
I'm sure they are. They're working with tough stuff. I get that.
Yeah.
So trust me, we
They're
know what
doing
they're
the
dealing
best
with.
they
But if there are, my point is, if there are things that we can fix, we do want to fix them. I would think the Board of Ed wants to fix them. Again, I don't have statutory authority here, but I would assume they want to fix them. That's the point. And so, don't assume just because the building's old, we can't fix that issue. We can't get a window to lock. Well, we should be able to fix that somehow, some way, until we get an alternate plan. That's all I'm saying. We're not being critical of anybody. I take this as much as my responsibility as anybody else's. So So thank you for listening to me, and if any of you want to reach out to me personally on something, feel free. Obviously, our committee is working directly with all of you. You can work through your school system, but we want to hear from you all, and I appreciate it. This is critically important, and I'm really pleased because I didn't expect this many people. So I'm looking forward to the next school meetings because I hope we're having the same kind of turn. You guys have set the bar high for your other schools because this is the first one. So you make sure you pass it along to the other schools. If we set the bar high, don't let us down because we really need to hear from you all. So thank you all for your time. I don't know if they're done, folks. I probably took all of them.
I just gonna ask before we close up, anyone had any questions or anything like that? We do have an email address. I don't know it offhand.
It was in the email that was sent out to you.
Right, it's in the email that was sent, and it has the email address on there. We'd be glad to hear any suggestions and ideas that you have. Please send those to us, and if you want to be kept anonymous, we can do that. Okay? Thank you.